Welcome to Stories by Renee Rose Hawthorne, where sweet romance comes to life. Each episode, I'll be using AI narration to give life to clean, wholesome romances that span from contemporary small towns to magical fantasy realms. Whether you're folding laundry, taking a walk, or simply relaxing with your eyes closed, I hope these stories transport you to worlds where love blossoms in the most enchanting ways. So settle in, get comfortable, and allow yourself to be swept away by stories that warm the heart.
Sculpted Chance, a sweet, meet-cute romance, by Renee Rose Hawthorne. The last place Lucas expected to find himself on a Tuesday morning was flat on his back in a pile of wet clay. It had been a simple enough errand. Deliver the package of tools to Studio 7B at the Riverside Arts Center. His sister Tara had called in a panic. She'd forgotten essential supplies for her pottery class again. Please, Lucas. They closed the studio at noon today. I need these for Thursday's class. I'll owe you one. He'd agreed despite the important client meeting looming on his calendar. That's what brothers did, especially for sisters who had talked them through countless late-night crises. The converted warehouse smelled like creativity itself. Turpentine mixed with oils, earthy clay blended with sweet wood shavings. Lucas wound through maze-like corridors. His footsteps echoed off exposed brick walls. Industrial light fixtures cast harsh shadows between doorways. Studio 7B's door was propped open with a brick. He stepped inside, called out a tentative hello. The space felt alive with possibility. Dust motes danced in streams of morning light. But in his attempt to be discreet, he tripped. A wooden structure caught his ankle. He tumbled into what he now realized was a large bin of soft, gray clay. The cool, damp material enveloped him with startling intimacy. It clung to every surface it touched. A woman's voice came from above him, concern mixed with suppressed laughter. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Lucas blinked up at the ceiling, then at the woman leaning over him, tall, with strong shoulders and arms sculpted by her craft. Dark curls escaped from a bandana tied around her head. The sunlight from high windows caught in her eyes. Golden flecks shifted as she moved. Clay-smudged hands hovered above him, uncertain whether touching would help. Lucas felt that familiar tightness in his chest. Here we go again, he thought. The same feeling he got every time he met an attractive woman. 3 years of dating disasters had taught him caution. Beautiful women meant complications. They meant getting his hopes up. But something about her felt different. Her laugh wasn't mocking. Her eyes held genuine concern, not the calculating look he'd grown to recognize. Lucas shifted in the clay, considered how he felt, gave his automatic reply, "I'm fine." His dignity wasn't. He was sprawled in clay like some bizarre modern art installation. Heat rose in his cheeks as he stared at his clay-covered hands. Gray streaks painted his palms. Just surprised. A smile tugged at the corner of the woman's mouth. A dimple appeared in her left cheek. It softened her striking features. "You're covered in clay, and you've just body slammed my reclaim bin." The clay was already starting to dry. It tightened where it was thinnest on his skin. Lucas managed to sit up, surveyed the damage. His once blue shirt was now mottled gray. His jeans weren't faring better. He looked like he'd been mud wrestling. His embarrassment heightened. He could have destroyed something important. "I'm so sorry." Heat burned his face, spread to his ears. He could imagine how red he looked. "I was delivering these for my sister." He held up the clay-smudged package. Somehow it had stayed clutched in his hand during his fall. A small miracle amid the disaster. The woman's expression shifted. Intense focus relaxed into recognition. "Tara's brother, she mentioned you might be dropping something off." Her lips broke into a smile that transformed her face, made her amber eyes dance with humor. "Though I don't think she meant for you to become one with the medium quite so immersively. Don't get charmed." Lucas reminded himself of Sarah, who'd seemed sweet until she'd maxed out his credit card. Of Jessica, who'd turned out to be married. Of Amanda, who'd only dated him to make her ex jealous. But this woman's amusement felt different. Warm. inviting him to share in the absurdity rather than mock it. Lucas glanced at his clay covered clothes and felt a laugh bubble up. I've always been an overachiever. He attempted to stand. His shoes squelched in the clay. The sound was both comical and mortifying, like walking through thick mud. The woman reached out, strong fingers wrapped around his forearm to steady him. Lucas noticed the surprising gentleness of her grip. The contrast between her strength and careful touch sent an unexpected shiver up his arm. Don't read into it. He had to not get his hopes up, but he noticed she didn't wear a wedding ring. Not that it meant anything, shouldn't mean anything. He was good at being single, good at not dating. She helped him clear the clay bin. I'm Ivy. Tara takes my Thursday wheel throwing class. She brushed some clay off his arm. It clung stubbornly to the fabric. Lucas found himself missing the warmth of her touch when she pulled away. He felt awkward, but went with the introduction. Lucas, delivery boy, apparently. He tried not to drip clay on the concrete floor, also tried not to stare at the way sunlight caught in her curls, turned them almost auburn in places. Ivy gestured around them with clay-stained hands. And acrobat. That was quite an entrance. I don't think anyone's ever been quite so enthusiastic about visiting my studio before. Under different circumstances, Lucas might have appreciated the warmth in her gaze more. Circumstances that didn't involve being covered in wet clay. Might have tried less to hide how he noticed her athletic build, how gracefully she moved despite her height and strength. As it was, he just wanted to drop off the package and find the nearest sink, though he found his urgency fading. The longer she looked at him with those amber eyes, the less he wanted to leave. She pointed behind him with a clay-smudged hand. There's a utility sink in the corner. You can at least get your hands clean. For the rest... She gestured to his clay-covered clothes. Her eyes swept over him in a way that felt more appreciative than critical, despite his disheveled state. I'm afraid that's beyond studio resources. The practical problem helped ground him, pulled his attention away from the curious flutter in his chest whenever she smiled. It's fine, I'll figure something out. Though it wasn't fine. He had a client meeting in an hour. His spare clothes were at home, a 20-minute drive away. Lucas shuffled to the sink, tried to minimize the mess with each step. Clay chunks fell from his clothes, left a trail across the concrete floor. As he scrubbed at his hands, Ivy moved around the studio behind him. Her footsteps were confident and measured. She hummed under her breath, created an intimate atmosphere in the clay-scented air. The water ran gray down the drain. Bits of clay clung under his fingernails. The earthy scent rose with the steam. The studio around him hummed with creative energy. Half-finished sculptures stood on wheeled platforms. Shelves lined the walls, filled with works in various stages. The air tasted of earth and possibility. A large sculpture stood in the center of the room, a sinuous, abstract form that seemed to reach upward, almost like flames frozen in clay. Even to his untrained eye, it was striking, alive with movement and emotion despite being made of earth. Focus on the art, not the artist. But his eyes kept drifting back to Ivy as she worked. He nodded toward the sculpture as he dried his hands. Did you make that? He found himself curious, wanting to know more about her work, about how those strong, gentle hands could create something so delicate and powerful. Ivy glanced up from where she was digging through a cabinet. A strand of dark hair fell across her forehead. She brushed it back with the back of her wrist, left a smudge of clay that somehow enhanced her natural beauty. Yes, it's a commission piece, still in progress. The sculpture drew him closer, almost as much as he felt drawn to her. It's powerful. It looks like... He tilted his head, tried to find the right words. Like movement captured in stillness. Ivy paused, studied him with newfound interest. Her amber eyes widened. Something shifted in her expression. A spark of connection, of recognition. That's what I hoped. Most people just say it looks like weird flames. She actually cared what he thought. That was new. Most of the women he dated had seemed more interested in his bank account than his opinions. Lucas cocked his head to the side. Well, I'm not most people, then felt foolish for the cliche. He ran a hand through his hair, forgot about the clay until it was too late. Great, now my hair's part of the exhibit, too? Ivy chuckled. The sound was rich and genuine. Clearly not. Most people use the door without creating a clay disaster. She approached him, held out a bundle of fabric, close enough that he caught her scent. Clay mixed with something fresh, like herbs or citrus. Here, it's not much, but it's clean and dry. Lucas accepted what turned out to be a large t shirt. The Art Center's logo decorated the front. The fabric was soft from many washings. He found himself touched by the gesture. Thank you, but I can't take your shirt. She's being nice because I'm pathetic. The voice in his head sounded like his last girlfriend, the one who told him he was too available right before she dumped him. But Ivy's voice carried warmth, sincerity he hadn't heard in a long time. It's not mine. We sell them in the gift shop. Consider it disaster relief. She paused. Her eyes met his with quiet invitation. There's a bathroom down the hall where you can change. 10 minutes later, Lucas returned wearing the oversized t shirt. His clay covered button down was stuffed into a plastic bag Ivy had provided. His jeans were still damp and streaked with gray, but at least he didn't look like he'd been mud wrestling anymore. He'd done his best to clean clay from his hair. Suspected he hadn't been successful, based on Ivy's amused expression. Her eyes lingered on him. A small smile played at her lips. Then she turned back to the sculpture. Better? While he'd been gone, she had added thin ribbons of clay to the upper portion. Her strong hands moved with certainty. The focused intensity in her expression was captivating. Her entire being seemed engaged with the clay, as if they were having a conversation only she could hear. Lucas wanted to stay and watch her work, found himself reluctant to leave despite his embarrassment. Much. Thank you. He placed his sister's package on a clean workbench. I should let you get back to work. He needed to leave before he said something stupid, before he started thinking this meant something more to him than her. Ivy nodded, then surprised him by asking a question. Do you have any interest in sculpture, Lucas? Besides falling into it, I mean? Her tone was light, but genuine curiosity filled her eyes, and perhaps something more, an invitation that extended beyond mere politeness. He shrugged, watched the way her hands continued to shape clay even as she spoke. I've never thought about it. My artistic abilities are limited to stick figures. Tara got all the creative genes in the family. He found himself wondering what her hands would feel like against his skin, without the barrier of clay between them, then redirected his thoughts. She's probably just being polite, making conversation with the disaster who'd invaded her studio. Ivy wiped her hands on a towel. That's what everyone says before they try it. It's not about talent. It's about seeing, feeling, being willing to make a mess. Her eyes flicked to his clay-stained jeans with amusement. You've already mastered that last part. Lucas laughed. I suppose I have. The sound came easier than usual, despite his reserve with strangers. There was something about Ivy that made him feel comfortable, seen. The studio felt warmer now, more intimate. Afternoon light slanted through the high windows, cast everything in golden hues. Ivy's voice carried casual invitation, but her eyes were watchful. A slight color rose in her cheeks. We have an open studio night on Fridays, 7 to 9. No experience necessary, just exploration. He knew he shouldn't get his hopes up, but Lucas felt a flutter of something warm in his chest. A quickening pulse that had nothing to do with embarrassment. Do you teach that too? I supervise, guide when needed. Mostly I work on my own projects while others experiment. She gestured to her sculpture. This needs to be finished by next week. When she turned back to him, another strand of hair fell across her face. This time she left it there. Lucas found himself wanting to reach out, to tuck it back, to feel if those curls were as soft as they looked. He knew she probably had a boyfriend, but something in her manner suggested otherwise, a careful attention to his responses, a warmth that felt genuine rather than practiced. Lucas moved to get a different angle on the sculpture. It's remarkable. From here, he could see how the base anchored the flowing form, how each curve led to the next, how the entire sculpture told a story of movement and potential. The way it seems to defy gravity while still being so grounded. He looked up to find Ivy watching him, her expression soft with something that might have been pleasure. At his understanding, the morning sunlight illuminated half her face, cast the other half in gentle shadow. She resembled her own sculpture, strong lines and gentle curves, stillness and potential energy all at once. She moved to stand beside him, her shoulder nearly touching his. The almost contact hummed between them, created electricity in the clay scented air. That's exactly what I'm trying to achieve: balance between movement and stability, freedom and structure. Like what I need in my life? The thought surprised him. He'd been so focused on avoiding complications, he'd forgotten what it felt like to want them. Lucas nodded, understanding more than just her words. He was suddenly aware of his client meeting, of his clay stained jeans, of all the practical reasons he should leave, and equally aware of how little he wanted to. He brushed some dry clay off his pants. I should probably go get cleaned up properly before my meeting. And before he did something stupid, like ask her out. Ivy stepped back, though her eyes remained on his. Of course. But you're welcome to come Friday nights, if you're interested. She smiled then, that transformative expression that seemed to light her from within. No pressure to create a masterpiece, though I can't promise you won't end up covered in clay again. Lucas had a moment of imagination he had to rein in, focus on the idea of creating art with her. I think I'd like that, though next time I'll try to stay vertical. Ivy's amber eyes danced with humor and something warmer. Where's the fun in that? She paused, let her gaze linger on his face a bit longer than necessary. I'll be there Friday, working on this piece. She touched the sculpture gently, but I'd welcome the distraction. The word hung in the air between them, loaded with invitation. As Lucas left the studio, he glanced back. Ivy was working at her sculpture again. Her hands moved with that mesmerizing blend of strength and delicacy. Then she looked up, caught his eye through the doorway. A slow smile spread across her face. She lifted one clay-covered hand, gave him a small wave that felt like a promise. He found himself looking forward to Friday with anticipation. Had nothing to do with art, everything to do with the artist. His clothes were ruined. He'd be late for his meeting, had to make some calls, but he wanted to hug his sister for sending him on her errand, even if he had clay in places he'd rather not think about. Or maybe he could take a chance again on something other than business and friendships. Stumbling into Studio 7B felt like the best mess he'd made in a long time. Sometimes the most unexpected falls led to the most interesting places, and sometimes the most interesting people. Friday couldn't come soon enough. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Reviews are super helpful to authors and make my days, so if you can, please leave a review wherever you are reading or listening. If you would like to read more by Renee Rose Hawthorne, please visit reneehawthorne.com or find my books on Amazon, Goodreads, and 11 Reader.